Judgment. How are you, man?
Good. How are you?
Good, dude. How are you doing after graduating?
It's been rough in a way. Getting used to not being on school all the time. I was doing that full time, so it's been kind of hard to find, get in the rhythm of doing non-WGU work like on a consistent basis. How about you?
I was working and raising kids during mine, so it's the same old, except, a little bit more time back on the plate. My name is Bryan Edmondson, and I enjoy a number of different things. Transferred to the industry of cybersecurity about 5 years ago after being laid off from a 15-year job.
Oh,
Yeah, and things that I like to do around the house. I like to play chess. I like to play golf. I like to hang out with my kids.
yeah, my brothers are really big chess fans. I mean, we all play it, but my brothers are really big into chess. Yeah, so what's your background? And I mean, particularly like kind of your work history. Yeah, what's like education slash work history background like leading up to WGU?
Before WGU, I only had a high school education. I'd never attended college. I went to the Navy shortly after high school, only did one term in the Navy. I went into DirecTV as a technician on the ground, going to people's houses. I did that for about 5 years and then obtained a training position in that company. I trained for about 5 years, and then things began to shift, and AT&T was purchasing DirecTV around that time. So I switched and went to management and was in management for about 3 to 4 years. And then I was laid off. And when I was laid off, that's when I chose, let's do something about that. And that's
Yeah,
when I started looking and found WGU. It
yeah,
wasn't
it's
related to anything other than the acquisition.
huh. Yeah, that's interesting. My father actually, he was in medical stuff for the longest time, but he did direct TV well, he installed satellite dishes and stuff. I don't know if he worked directly with direct TV, and his uncle did that before. No, my uncle, I mean.
It's humbling work, man.
Yeah,
If you're looking for a representative that's got customer service experience in their background, a technician across the board, cable, satellite, doesn't matter. They got it.
so what did you hope to improve about like your personal life? What was kind of your motivation?
IT was initially the direction that I was pointing to, simply because of my affinity with working on computers, building my own rigs, doing the whole thing that a lot of us do in the background. And I thought, well, let's give this a shot. Going for the degree specifically, I was the only one to graduate from college. Now that I have. In my family, in my immediate family, so that was a big push for me. I wanted to
Yeah,
be that, so I was going for that, obviously going for the kids, going for the money. I had only worked hourly jobs up until I got into management at DirecTV. And so a salaried position was a requirement for me. And if I was going to shift industries, then that's the only thing that I needed to do was to pursue an IT foundation background. When I found WGU, they had a cybersecurity program, and I thought, man, that sounds really good. Started looking at it. You start, you know, as well as I do, you go down that road and you start looking at all these certifications and all of this progress and things that you can achieve throughout the journey. And I was like, I'm in.
did you like transfer into cybersecurity before the degree, or did you kind of get laid off, move into cybersecurity, and then get the degree? Did you have some
Yeah,
cybersecurity related experience before?
no, none before.
You didn't get a job until after graduating?
Oh, no, no. I got a job when I went to school. I got laid off. I got a contracting gig with a subcontracting group working from Charter, their hubs. And I did that for a
Mhm.
year. I contracted for a year. And that kind of turned me on different things about
And
network.
contracting for cybersecurity related stuff?
It was not cybersecurity related. Mm-mm.
Okay, yeah, but it
It was only
was
networking related.
networking. Okay, yeah. I've heard a lot
Yep.
of people said that's a good bridge.
So after I contracted for a year, I was like, kind of don't want to do this anymore because it's a
Hmm.
very, it's an on call thing. You got to be there in the middle of the night, sometimes for absolutely no reason.
Yeah.
And I can't do that. So I searched for just a cybersecurity position, but I didn't land that. I landed an IT administrator position.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'd definitely like to kind of hear more about that. My father, he's currently kind of transitioning. He was in healthcare for like 10 years, worked his way all the way up to upper management. Now he has an MBA in IT, and it's just kind of interesting. Like, how would he transfer? What would your advice for someone like him in particular? He definitely has experience, real world experience in an MBA in IT. But how would he transition into IT career or a cybersecurity career, just something more technology related?
Into a cybersecurity career specifically. I'll tell you a secret. You already know it. He's already there. If you've worked in IT long enough and you have real world experience in IT, just systems administration alone, it prepares you for cybersecurity. And a lot of people put a lot of things in job descriptions, but what they're looking for is they're looking for veterans of the industry,
Yeah.
who have seen things. So when you say he wants to transition into cybersecurity, or a person like him wants to, what do you think the hurdle is?
The hurdle I'm seeing is he has 90% of his experience comes from healthcare and healthcare management. And I definitely see how there's a lot of transferable skills, especially in the customer service and management area. But I'm just wondering how we get the employer to see that.
You got to get the interview. Once you get the interview, you can deliver that skill
Yeah,
set in the interview. But getting the interview is going to be the challenge. But you said his MBA was in IT.
that's correct. Yes.
Is it in manage? Like, is his experience in management, or
Yeah.
is it?
Yeah. It's healthcare management. I'm going to say like 5 years he's been working in management. He was like the head of 2 buildings for several years.
So in his managerial position, was it technical or is it managerial?
It's mostly managerial, but since he was managing everything, he had to do some technical.
Well, if he's got technical background, he should be able to speak to a lot of things that relate to cybersecurity, would be my guess.
What was the difficult parts of WGU or the easy parts or kind of the ups and downs? And what was hard or easy for you about WGU?
I think the hardest part was the first step. For me, I'd always talk with cousins and people that, I was geeking out with over computer things about the A+ certification, right?
Yeah,
Well, for me to get into WGU, I had to qualify somehow. So I went out and got that cert on my own. Even though you've got garage-based experience, you really don't know the terminologies and the things that they teach you in that certification. It's pretty eye-opening from someone that's never been there before.
yeah,
So that was my biggest hurdle, was getting that cert on my own so that I could qualify to get into WGU. Once I got in, my hurdles, my struggles were very much the same as yours. I've watched some of your videos, like the CYSA. Achieving the certifications, I think that was my most stressful period during the
yeah,
WGU coursework. But the coursework itself was fun. I was engaged, and I didn't really experience a lot of things that I see on Reddit, online, on other things.
yeah, yeah. For me, I did the Google Plus to get in, which was a pretty easier certificate. It's like a whole open book test. But then
Cool.
like, one of the first things I had to do was A plus, which is really brutal. That was the hardest certificate for me, hands down, out of all of the certificates. I already asked you about. You said you got a job in cybersecurity soon after being into school. Like, how far into school was that?
Probably the first 6 months. I'll just say somewhere in there. I'm not sure exactly when I got hired there. I got hired at a place called Invisticom in 2018. My experience there was very well received. I learned a lot from my manager and everybody else in the group. It opened the doors for cyber because in that company there was a cyber department, and I was friends with a lot of those guys. And so I started picking up the lingo, started learning about what it's actually like. I was able to tell that this was still the right path for me. That was kind of the foot in the door. I transitioned to a company called MailChimp, and I work in the networking group for MailChimp, but I am under the network security umbrella. So I manage a lot of tools that relate to
Hmm.
cybersecurity, like Tenable, ExtraHop, SolarWinds, those kinds of
Yeah, and then how long did it take you to do your whole degree? And also kind of what was
things.
like your
I took
work?
the entire 4 years.
That's what my father did too. He transferred in a little bit. He took an entire 4 years because he was working sometimes 2 jobs. He had a large family and he was living off grid, so it was a lot.
Yep.
That's kind of the
So I'm
upside of
sorry.
WGU. for WGU, you can either go really fast, like me, if you have very little responsibilities, or in your case, it allows you to go even though you have a lot to do.
Yeah. So how fast did you complete yours?
A year and 6 months, or
Oh,
a little under a year and 6 months. Yeah.
yeah, you smoked it, man. Good job and
Thank you.
congratulations.
Papa's like,
That's
he's like, do it young when you're not married and don't have any children. So I just did that pretty much full time. Last 6 months I had a job, but it was still pretty much full time.
so why WGU for you though?
Kind of a lot of reasons, but my uncle got a degree there a long time ago. He got like his bachelor's in 6 months. And then my father got his master's in like 6 months. And my father got it in 4 years. Got his bachelor's in 4 years because, like I said, he was working a lot. I've been homeschooled my whole life. And so I was definitely into both staying at home and teaching myself. That was something I was open to, had a lot of experience with. And really the hope was that I would be able to accelerate through, which I was able to do. I mean, I was originally shooting for getting it done in 6 months. It took me a year and a half. But that was really the main motivation is I was just going to try to get it done faster. It's also, as you know, way cheaper than normal college tuition, plus with the added
Oh,
benefit for me of doing it in a shorter period of time. So traditional college was never really on the table for me.
yeah, it should have been for me, not out of high school, but out of the Navy. I had the GI Bill and I was a different person then. So I didn't use it. And,
Yeah,
in my time, it expired. And I kind of let that resource just go to waste. Ridiculous. And anybody who's watching this, don't ever do that. Use the resources that are presented to you. It's interesting that you chose WGU. I can see how you would, given your family's um, position on it. But it's a great school. I mean, it's a great opportunity to get a degree at your own pace and do your own thing
yeah.
instead of locked down. So
Also, the certificates is a big thing. Not everyone else does that because that's like kind of like almost 2 degrees. Like you get the certificates and the degree. So even if WGU isn't like, it's not like Harvard, it's maybe not be universally recognized, but CompTIA is. Yeah, and then just any kind of parting advice or anything I left out.
I think that a lot of your viewers are probably people like you and I who are looking for content to do with WGU and their journey within it. So for any of those people that are still pursuing a degree, I mean, Judgment and myself, we didn't give up. Don't ever give up, right? There's no reason to do that, especially at the tuition rates and the criteria which they measure you against. You can get this done. Okay. That would be my parting gift to the world is that this is your way in. So work this and then worry about what's after.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you calling me up.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.